You were just too old for this pace. That's what Blake said with that polished corporate smile. The company is modernizing its processes. Thanks for everything. 11 years of work reduced to a signature at the bottom of an email. My name is Richard Rayner. I'm 45 years old and I worked as a senior financial analyst at a major American multinational. I joined back when everything was still done manually. I was the one who built the first control spreadsheets, the very same ones the board still relies on for nearly every decision. I never missed a day, never made noise. I just delivered, quietly. Blake Thompson has been the CFO for as long as I can remember. Young, polished, with an MBA and a stockpile of buzzwords about efficiency. He never spoke to anyone below management, unless it was to delegate or to fire. Always distant, cold. The kind of guy who believes spreadsheets matter more than people. But in their rush to erase me from the system, they missed one little thing. The hidden bonus control spreadsheet? Yeah, I still had access. And I remembered exactly who got paid, how much, and when. The first meeting got canceled on a Tuesday. No notice, no explanation. It was the monthly session where I presented the bonus flows and the previous quarter's tax risk reports. Blake usually sat in even if he didn't say a word, but this time the invite vanished from the calendar. I ignored it. Figured it was a system glitch. The following week, a new spreadsheet popped up. No heads up, full of errors. Someone from the controller's office had tried to replicate the model I built from scratch, the one that carefully aligned goals, approvals, and payment dates with clean formulas. But they butchered it. Broken cells, overlapping formulas, a total mess. I quietly flagged it to a manager. He acted like he didn't hear me. At lunch, a coworker leaned in. You hear they're planning to automate everything now? Word is the reports are going straight to the API. I nodded, stayed silent. But inside, I got the message. They were clearing the way. By Thursday, I lost access to a folder I'd used for years. I opened a ticket with IT. They replied with a screenshot. Access revoked per executive request. That was it. No further explanation. The following week, they called in all the senior employees for a presentation on operational efficiency and process modernization. PowerPoint slides full of nice words. Agility, innovation, future. Blake walked in toward the end of the meeting. He stood there with his arms crossed while the consultant talked about how automation cuts unnecessary costs. Unnecessary costs. That's what I was to him. 2 days later, I got called into HR. Cold room, uncomfortable chair. Blake was there, along with the head of human resources. Richard, he started with that fake tone of empathy. The company is going through a strategic business redesign. And what does that mean? I asked, already knowing. We're eliminating your position. Thank you for your years of dedication. You've always been very valuable. Valuable. Just not valuable enough to keep around. I didn't say a word, didn't ask for an explanation, just looked at him, then at the paper on the desk. Termination form. Date, signature, a single line stating process modernization as the reason. I signed. On the way out, no one said a word. My coworkers, some I had trained, others I had helped through crises, lowered their eyes. I walked past them carrying my box, a cactus, 2 pens, and a photo of my daughter. Down the hallway, I saw the new finance manager already sitting at my old desk. He didn't even look up. I didn't explode. I didn't yell. I just left, wrapped in a silence so heavy it seemed to stick to the walls. When I got home, I set the box down in the kitchen and went straight to my office. My personal computer was there, powered off, just like always. But I knew it still held copies of the original models I'd built for the company, including the one almost no one knew existed. The hidden bonus tracking dashboard. Back then, Blake had asked me for something discreet to monitor variable payouts for certain executives. Just a way to avoid the formal channels, he said. Keeps things quiet, Richard. This is about trust. And like a fool, I trusted him. I was the one who created it. I was the one who saved it. I was the one who kept it running. But in their rush to erase me from the system, they missed one small detail. At the bottom of that spreadsheet, a hidden tab. Strategic payments. Verbal authorization. The last entry was dated 1 week before I got fired. And the name behind the approval was his. I didn't tell my daughter I'd been fired. At least not that first week. She was excited about a school performance and I didn't want to ruin it. I told her I was working from home, for an indefinite period. She believed me. The days that followed became a loud kind of emptiness. The silence in the house hurt. The sound of cars outside reminded me I wasn't commuting to the office. The home office chair, where I used to stay late reviewing reports, was now just a chair. The world kept moving, and for the first time in years I wasn't part of it. Then the messages started coming in. People from work pretending to be shocked. Man, I can't believe it. What they did to you was unfair. That whole modernization thing was just an excuse. But no one did anything. Their priority was keeping their jobs. And to do that, it was safer to pretend I no longer existed. I got the severance statement by email. Cold, straight to the point. The amount was accurate. But there was a small print note at the bottom. Termination does not authorize access to any internal company documents, even those created by you. I laughed to myself. They knew, or at least suspected. I went back to the spreadsheet. The hidden tab was still there. Strategic payments, verbal authorization. It had never been officially mentioned in any meeting, but it was the rotten core of the system. Behind the scenes, Blake approved bonuses for executives who hit sensitive targets. Large sums on odd dates with verbal approval, no signed documents, no audit trail. But there was one detail almost no one knew. When I built that spreadsheet, I embedded a script that stored the data even if the tab was hidden or deleted. For security, of course, the kind of thing you only do out of loyalty or fear. Every payment was logged with timestamp, date, and user IP address. The most recent entry was from 7 days before they fired me. Signed by Blake. I sat down and took a deep breath. For years I had looked the other way. I thought it was just part of the game, executive stuff. But now I was just another clean name in the company's exit file. I started organizing the data, not for revenge, not yet, but out of necessity. I printed a hard copy of the spreadsheet, tucked it into the back of a folder with old company documents, created an offline backup, password protected, gave it a generic name, Holiday Report, v3.zip. That night I barely slept, dreamed I was back in the monthly meeting presenting the numbers. But no one could hear me. Blake kept talking over me. The others stared at the screen, pretending I wasn't there. I woke up with my heart racing, went to the kitchen, poured some coffee, leaned against the counter, and there, in the stillness of the early morning, it hit me. I knew too much, and if there's one thing this company doesn't like, it's a former employee with too good a memory. 3 days passed before I opened that file again. It wasn't fear. It was weight. I knew that the moment I truly engaged with it, there'd be no turning back. Until then, I was just an unemployed worker. But one click, and I'd become a threat. I went down to the basement to dig through some old boxes. Amidst tax documents and college memories, I found a folder with notes from a compliance project I'd worked on years ago. Inside was the name of a former colleague, Evan Keller. Evan had been the company's legal affairs manager for about 5 years. He left after a clash with the board over undocumented practices he refused to sign off on, too honest for the kind of environment we were in. He'd gone on to become a corporate governance consultant. The last time we spoke, he told me, "If anything ever looks off, Richard, write it down, even if you think you'll never use it." I sent him a quick message. "Evan, I need to talk to you. It's serious. It's about things still happening at that company, and I have proof." He replied in under an hour. We scheduled a call for the next day. Meanwhile, I started reviewing the files. For security, I created fragmented copies on 2 separate flash drives. One I stored in a downtown safe deposit box. The other at my sister's house. It wasn't paranoia. It was caution. With every line I read, my anger grew. People I respected, project leaders, heads of technical departments, quietly receiving off-the-record bonuses. At the same time, I saw colleagues getting laid off under the excuse of cost control. And the pattern kept repeating. Closed-door meeting. New target created staff layoffs. Special bonus for the person responsible for the optimization. And at the very end of the chain, the verbal sign-off. BT, Blake Thompson, the company that claimed to value ethics and transparency, had a secret, off-the-books reward system running in the background, and without realizing it, I had been the technical accomplice to it for years. On the call with Evan, I couldn't hide the weight in my voice. "They fired me, Evan. Said it was process modernization, but the truth is, I know more than I should. Do you have proof? He asked, straight to the point. I've got everything. Dates, amounts, even names. He took a deep breath. You have a case, but you need to be smart about it. We talked for over an hour. Evan walked me through what would legally qualify as an illegal bonus scheme under regulatory standards, and he warned me about the risks. If you want justice, how you present this matters more than anything. You mean, I can't just send an email to the board? You can, and they'll ignore it. Or worse, they'll accuse you of breach of confidentiality or unauthorized access. But the spreadsheet is mine. Richard, when you were employed there, everything you created belonged to the company. You know that. Silence. It was true. But the difference was, no one, absolutely no one, knew how that spreadsheet actually worked. Without me, it was just a collection of numbers. With me, it was a map. In the days that followed, I rebuilt my routine. Started walking early, reviewed files late in the morning, reached out to old contacts from work. I didn't say anything directly, just asked questions, observed. And I saw the cracks in that glass tower of a company. People were afraid, new managers who had no idea what they'd walked into, and a growing whisper, an external audit was coming. One morning, I went to print part of the report to show Evan in person. The printer jammed. I carefully uninstalled the cartridge, and when I pulled out the last sheet, there it was, tucked into the lower corner of the hidden tab. Bonus approved, $7,500. Project senior staff reduction, authorization BT, date 6 days before my termination. The same day they approved my dismissal. Blake received a bonus for the cost savings I supposedly represented. He got paid to cut me, but he signed off on the bonus before my departure was even official, and that changes everything. There was no need to rush. With people like this, the mistake always comes from arrogance. They think they're in control. They assume the fired employees will disappear, keep their heads down, look for another job, and forget. But I wasn't in a hurry. I had time. And memory. More than that, I had evidence. The first thing I did was call a former colleague from another department. His name was Tom Harris, internal audit manager, one of the few in that place who still had a clean conscience. We exchanged short coded messages. Man, are you still attending board meetings? Yeah, but the mood's changed. They're avoiding certain topics. Do you have access to the archived meeting minutes? Only the officially filed ones. What about the unofficial ones? Some. Why? I asked to meet him away from the workplace. We picked a quiet cafe in a distant neighborhood. I brought a folder and showed him just one page. He read it, paused, and swallowed hard. You had all this? And more. I just want to understand, what are they hiding? Blake's been withholding information from the board. Says it's to avoid noise. But no one's had access to the bonus control since you left. Tom told me the last meeting ended with 3 board members visibly unsettled. One of them had requested an external audit. Blake apparently said it was unnecessary. The phrase he used, internal trust-based management. Translation, we're not letting anyone from the outside see what's inside. I went back home and started building a dossier. Nothing flashy, just facts. No opinions, no drama. Screenshots, dates, internal documents, and a chart cross-referencing the layoffs with the special bonuses. At the top of the report, a simple title, Irregular Bonus Pattern, 18 months. I created a new email address with a neutral name, set up end-to-end encryption, and saved the content in drafts, ready to send with one click. I hadn't sent it yet. Before that, I needed one more move. I remembered an old client from the company, Marianne Keller from the energy sector. She was always tough in negotiations and knew her way around the back rooms. She was now part of an external corporate compliance committee, working across more than 10 companies in the region. I sent her a brief message. Marianne, this is Richard Rayner. I have something that might interest you. It's related to my former company's board. If you're open to hearing it, I'll explain. Immediate reply. If it's serious, I'm available tomorrow morning. The conversation with her was short, but effective. I showed her the start of the pattern. She got it instantly. This is a scheme. You don't need much to prove it. Just match the records against the company's internal charter. They've broken multiple rules. And if I take this to the board, alone, they'll ignore you. But if it leaks to the external investors committee, they won't have a choice. I paused for a moment. Everything was falling into place. And there I was, right in the middle of it, a former employee without a badge, holding more power than anyone realized. On the way home, I passed by the old office building. Same structure, same mirrored windows, same chairs filled by people who had no idea what was about to happen. I parked the car 1 block away, took out my phone, opened the drafts folder. The report was already attached. Recipients 3 board members, 1 from the External Governance Committee, and an institutional email for anonymous communications. My finger hovered over the send button, but something made me stop. It still wasn't the right moment. One piece was missing. An external move, something that didn't come from me. And in that silence, the phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. A firm female voice. Mr. Rayner, this is Human Resources from the company. We need to talk. It's about information you may have access to. Information that officially should have been deleted. She called talking about unauthorized access, but she didn't even know the system was still updating in real time. And I was watching everything. The call was brief. Mr. Rayner, this is just a procedural contact. The company is reviewing its systems and noticed you may have retained access to confidential files. What kind of access? I asked, already knowing the answer. We can't confirm specifics, but we are considering legal action if necessary. The threat came wrapped in politeness. But the message was clear. I'd hit a nerve. They thought I'd hacked into the system, but what they didn't know was that I never had to. The flaw was already there. I was the one who built part of the data infrastructure, and when the new team automated the system, they forgot to deactivate an old replication channel I had originally set up for internal audits. Only someone very anxious or very guilty would make a call like that. I stayed on high alert, stopped using my personal computer, stopped sending emails, went back to paper, like in the old days, wrote everything down in a worn blue notebook, numbers, dates, initials, connections. The next afternoon I got an unexpected message. It was from Laura, former HR manager. We had worked together for 7 years. She was tough, but fair. She left 2 months after I did. Never said why. Richard, I need to tell you something. It's worse than you think. Can we meet? We met at a quiet cafe far from the financial district. She arrived nervous, eyes scanning the room. I was contacted by a consulting firm that's now handling internal audit and HR processes. Handling how? Blake hired a third-party company to assess labor and financial risks. She showed me her phone screen. It was the consulting firm's name. And at the bottom of the website, Thompson Strategic Group, Excellence in Confidential Corporate Transitions. Thompson, same last name. It's his brother, she added. Blake put his own brother in charge of auditing the company, and the board's pretending not to see it. Why does that matter now? She pulled an envelope from her bag. Because they asked me to review old spreadsheets. Mine? Yes. With one specific instruction. Delete any tab not referenced in official meeting minutes. In other words, they were trying to erase the trail. And did you do it? I asked. She looked at me steady. No, I saved copies. And I'm scared of what they're doing with the rest. There are payments that never went through formal approval, and now they're trying to rewrite the record. I walked out of that conversation with one certainty. It was time. No more waiting. I went back home and connected my laptop to an isolated network. Accessed the old channel. It was still active. Within seconds, the data started syncing. Recent spreadsheets, new reports, and then one detail caught my eye. A tab with a strange name. Final review. Board approval only. When I opened it, I saw a sequence of entries that had never gone through me. Extraordinary bonuses. Dates lining up with mass layoffs. And at the bottom, justification, structural reduction, phase 3, signature, B. Thompson, co-signature, external consultant, TSG, Thompson Strategic Group. There it was, the missing link. I looked away from the screen and took a deep breath. This wasn't just a disgruntled ex-employee venting anymore. This was a scheme, built from inside the company, covered up by a shell consultancy, and hidden behind the word modernization. I prepared the dispatch. No more anonymous drafts this time. I sent the full dossier to Marianne Keller as a formal complaint, with all attachments and evidence included. She replied in under an hour, "Richard, this is beyond our committee. I'm escalating it to the Investment Oversight Board. The report will move forward, and yes, you will remain anonymous." I shut everything down, laid in bed, and slept for the first time in weeks. But the next morning before sunrise, a black car stopped in front of my house, sat there for 20 minutes, then drove off. No one got out. How far would they go to protect the company's secrets? And how far was I willing to go to expose them all? The next day, I woke up before the alarm. The black car didn't come back, but the message had been delivered. This wasn't just about an unfair dismissal anymore. Now it was about fraud, misconduct, and fear. I walked out to the porch with a cup of coffee and left my phone on silent. I waited. It didn't take long. At 9:17 a.m., the first email arrived. Subject: urgent request for contact sender, Blake Thompson. I didn't reply. At 10:03 a.m. came the second one, this time from the company's legal department. "Dear Richard, we've received reports that confidential company information may be circulating in an unauthorized manner. We request an immediate meeting to clarify the matter." They still thought they were in control, but it was too late. At 11:25 a.m., Marianne Keller called me. "Richard, they confirmed receipt of the complaint. The Oversight Board has ordered an independent investigation. They've already started? Starting today, and it leaked." "What do you mean, leaked?" "Industry media already knows. I got calls from 2 journalists. One of them had screenshots." "And what did you say?" "That I don't comment on ongoing investigations." I smiled for the first time in weeks. Not out of anger, out of relief. That same afternoon, I called Stephen, a former analyst I had trained. Smart kid. Young, good heart. He worked in the finance team. He had sent me a message right after I was let go saying, "What they did to you was dirty. If you ever need anything, I'm here." It was time. "Stephen, remember that day when I was let go?" "Of course. I need confirmation. Can you access the payment authorizations from the week before I was fired?" "I think so. Why?" "Tell me if Blake's name shows up under a strategic project bonus." "Hold on." Silence on the other end. "It's here. $87,500. Dated 3 days before they let you go." "Thanks, Stephen. Keep that and don't say anything. Just watch." I hung up and walked into my office, took the printed dossier out of the drawer, grabbed the sealed copy and went to the safe deposit box. I left it there, sealed, with a note. "In case of accident or disappearance, release to the press. Signed, M.R." From that moment on, the game changed. Thursday, 8 a.m., an emergency board meeting was called. 3 external members, 1 legal auditor, and Blake. I heard about it from Tom Harris, my inside contact. He called me laughing. "Man, you wouldn't believe it, he's pale." His brother, the so-called consultant, was uninvited from the meeting, and now people are asking for full access to the spreadsheets you created. And did they get it? Of course not. No one knows how that thing works. Not even the new system can open it properly. All they get is an error message. At 10:40 a.m., the call started. First a number from one of the directors, then Blake himself. Finally, legal. I didn't answer a single one. At 1:02 p.m., I received an unexpected email. Subject: settlement proposal and return offer. "Richard, in light of recent developments, we'd like to discuss the possibility of your reintegration into the company. We propose the creation of a new position, with operational autonomy and direct access to the board, aimed at reviewing internal processes and supporting the restoration of the organization's credibility." Translation: they were desperate. I read the message carefully. The offer included a higher salary, a signing bonus, and confidentiality clauses. But it was too late. They didn't want to hire me. They wanted to silence me. I replied with a single line, "I've already rebuilt everything I needed. Now it's your turn." The next day, the headline was all over a business news site. "Senior executive under investigation for approving illegal bonuses during financial restructuring." In the photo, Blake leaving the building with a black folder in hand, face hidden behind dark sunglasses. At the bottom of the article, one line stood out. "Sources indicate the allegations came from a former employee with privileged access to the company's internal controls." I stepped out onto the porch, looked up at the sky, took a deep breath. No drama, no lawsuit, no raised voice. I just told the truth and let the facts do the rest. 3 days after the story exploded in the press, I got the call I knew would come. It was Patricia Green, chair of the board. We had crossed paths once or twice in large meetings, but she had never spoken to me directly. This time, her voice was quiet. Tired. Richard, the board met. We conducted a full review of the processes mentioned in the report you shared with Marianne Keller. I imagine you found quite a bit. We did, and it ran deeper than we expected. She said Blake had been suspended. His brother's consulting contract was terminated, and the undocumented payments were now under investigation by an external committee. And what do you want from me now? I asked. She paused. We'd like to offer you a new position. Back at the same place? No, a new role, independent. You'd report directly to the board. And what exactly are you hoping to get out of this? Transparency, reconstruction, and honestly, some credibility. We've lost all of that over the last few years. I went silent. It was a tempting offer. High salary, full autonomy, leadership position, and more than that, recognition. But something about it didn't sit right. For years, I was invisible, useful, but ignored. No one cared about what I did until I was gone. I picked up the phone and called Evan, the governance consultant who helped me in the beginning, told him about the offer. Sounds fair, he said, but don't forget, the system that discarded you is still there. Even without Blake, people leave. Culture stays. And what would you do in my place? Depends. Do you want to rebuild or breathe? At the end of the day, I went to pick up my daughter from school. She got in the car laughing, talking about her science presentation. Midway through her story, she paused. Dad, why are you looking at me like that? I'm thinking. On the drive back, I saw the company building in the distance. The same one I was let go from. The same one that now, ironically, wanted me back. But something inside me had already left. The next morning, I put on a light blue shirt, shaved, headed to an interview with a social impact organization. Nothing to do with numbers. They wanted to build a transparent internal compensation system. They called me because they'd heard about the spreadsheet guy who took down a CFO. At the end of the meeting, the director asked, Richard, what makes you want to work with us? I looked out the window. To rebuild something, with people who still know what trust means. I went back home, opened Patricia's email, clicked reply. Thank you for the offer, but I believe the time has passed. I'm exactly where I need to be, with a clean conscience and new horizons ahead. I hit send, closed the laptop, walked out to the backyard and sat in the wooden chair I'd inherited from my father. The sun was soft, the breeze light. The company was still there, but I wasn't. 6 months have passed since that email. I never got a reply. No thank you, no follow-up, no insistence. They moved on, and so did I. Today I work as an independent consultant. I help smaller companies build transparent bonus systems and governance frameworks. No hidden formulas, no shortcuts, just clean work, ethical, smart. The company I'm currently working with is in a modest building. No mirrored glass, no meeting rooms that smell like overpriced cologne, but the atmosphere is different. People talk to each other face to face. The executives come downstairs to grab coffee with the staff. Last week, the HR director, a woman named Janelle, asked to speak with me. Richard, I've heard your story. What you did, that was brave. I just did what was right. Not everyone does. She told me that case had become a reference point inside the company. They call it the Rayner effect. When someone long overlooked reminds the company how high the cost of silence can be. At the end of our conversation, she said, we need people like you. People who aren't afraid to see what everyone else tries to ignore. I went home that day in silence. Not from sadness, but from a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. On the way back, I took a detour, on purpose past the old company. The building was still there, but something felt different. Maybe it was the half-empty parking lot, or the hurried eyes of those walking in. I parked for a moment, from a distance, and I realized that place wasn't mine anymore. Truth is, it never really was. What was mine, I took with me. The spreadsheets, the knowledge, the principles, everything that held that company together from the inside, even if they never saw it. Today I have a small office downtown. Simple desk, comfortable chair. On the wall, a framed quote I scribbled on a piece of paper the day after I was fired. Loyalty isn't weakness. It just needs to be given to the right people. My daughter visited me at work the other day. She'd grown so much in the past few months I barely noticed. She looked at the desk, the quiet flow of the place, and asked, "Dad, do you like this job more than the old one?" I smiled. "Here. No one tries to erase what I've done the moment I turn my back." She laughed, then hugged me. We stayed like that for a while. No rush. Later that afternoon, I got an unexpected message on my phone. It was from Stephen, the analyst still at the old company. "Richard, the new CFO asked us to review all the old systems. They're talking about bringing back your control model. But guess what? No one can replicate it." I didn't reply. Turned off the screen, stretched, closed the laptop. The world kept turning, and finally so did I. We spend our whole lives trying to prove we deserve to stay, until we realize the real value is what we take with us when we leave. And you? Have you ever been discarded from something you helped build?